The girl in the crowd, the sun had barely risen, but the line outside the downtown hotel was already growing. Fans held cameras, posters, and trembling hands full of hope. They had waited through the night for a glimpse of the one man who made them believe in something pure again, Keanu Reeves. But amid all the noise, there was one girl who didn't shout or push. She just stood quietly, her eyes fixed on the hotel's front door, holding a small letter close to her chest. Her name was Maya, 17 years old, soft brown eyes, a fraying red sweater, and shoes that had seen better days. Her mother had saved for months just to bring her to this city for a weekend. She didn't want autographs or photos. All she wanted was a moment to thank him. Not for the movies, but for something much deeper. You see, 3 years ago, when her father passed, away in a car accident, Maya's world fell apart. Nights became sleepless, mornings turned gray. Her mother did her best, but grief filled the air like heavy smoke. Then, one night, Maya stumbled across a clip of Keanu talking about loss. It wasn't scripted, it wasn't dramatic, just honest. Words from a man who understood pain. She replayed it again and again. His voice made her feel less alone. Since then, Keanu wasn't just an actor to her. He was proof that broken people could still shine. Now she had come all this way. 12 hours in the cold, arms trembling, legs stiff. But she didn't complain. When others left to eat or rest, Maya stayed. Her mother begged her to take a break, but Maya only smiled and whispered, "Just a few more minutes." Across the hotel's tinted windows, Keanu sat inside, unaware. He was preparing for a press event, sipping quiet coffee, reading notes. The manager was rushing him. The schedule was tight, the time even tighter. Security checked the doors. Crew adjusted lights, and still, outside, Maya waited. A street performer started playing a sad tune on the violin nearby. It danced through the morning air like a memory. People passed by, some curious, others indifferent. But Maya stood still, the music wrapping around her like a blanket. Inside, Keanu paused. Something about the music outside made him look up. Through the glass, he saw the crowd. Then he noticed her. Not because she screamed or waved, but because she didn't. In a sea of hands and signs, there she was, silent, still, holding something close. He couldn't see her face clearly, but something about her posture pulled at him, like someone waiting for more than just a selfie. He turned to his assistant and asked softly, "Who's that girl in the red sweater?" The assistant shrugged, confused. "Just another fan, I guess." But Keanu wasn't convinced. He had learned to trust his gut. He had seen too much pain in his own life to ignore it when it stood in front of him. He stepped away from the table. "I want to meet her." "But sir, the press, they can wait." The assistant sighed but didn't argue. Everyone knew. When Keanu made a decision, it came from the heart. Outside, Maya's legs felt numb. Her mother stood nearby, concerned. "Sweetheart, let's go. It's been 12 hours. Maybe he's already left." Maya didn't answer. She just looked at the letter again. It had one page, one small page with words that she rewrote over and over. She had memorized them by now, but she wanted to give them to him in person. Even if he never read them, just handing it over would be enough. Then something strange happened. The crowd began to stir. Phones lifted. Whispers turned to gasps. A door opened. Keanu Reeves walked out. No bodyguards, no entourage, just him. Calm, curious. Scanning the crowd with those quiet eyes. Maya's heart began to race. Not from excitement, but fear. What if he didn't see her? What if he walked the other way? But then, he started walking straight toward her. The world went quiet. Even the violin stopped. Keanu stopped in front of Maya. He looked down at her gently, like he already knew she had been waiting. "Hi," he said softly. Maya's lips trembled. Her throat was dry. Hi. He knelt down so he could be at her eye level. You've been here a long time. She nodded, unable to speak. Her hands shook as she held out the letter. I wrote this for you. He took it with care, as if it was something fragile. May I read it later? He asked. Yes, she whispered. Then came the moment that stunned everyone. Keanu didn't just thank her. He stood up, looked around, and said, "This girl waited 12 hours. I think she deserves more than a hello." He looked at Maya. "Would it be okay if we walked for a bit?" Maya looked at her mom. Her mother was in tears. She nodded. Keanu reached out his hand. Maya took it. The crowd parted. Silence. Cameras clicked, but no one dared to shout. They walked together down the street, not as actor and fan, but as two people who understood something the world often forgets. Kindness doesn't need a stage. It needs a moment. As they disappeared around the corner, one little girl in the crowd asked her father, "Why did he do that?" The father smiled and said, "Because he saw her. Really saw her." The letter in Keanu's hand was folded gently. He would open it later that night, sitting alone in his room. And when he read the first line, tears would fall. But that's for another part of this story. The letter he never expected. The sky darkened gently as evening settled over the city. The press event had ended, the cameras were packed up, and the noise that followed Keanu everywhere began to fade. But something inside him hadn't quieted. He still held the folded letter in his coat pocket, the one Maya had handed him. All day, it had stayed there like a quiet whisper against his heart. He was back in his hotel room now, a warm light spilling across the floor, casting soft shadows. The room was quiet, except for the distant hum of traffic outside. He sat by, the window with a glass of water in one hand, the letter in the other. He hesitated. He had received thousands of letters from fans over the years. Some were simple thank yous, others shared heartbreak, some even asked for help. But this one felt different. Maybe it was the way she looked at him. Maybe it was the silence in her eyes that screamed louder than the crowd ever could. With careful fingers, he opened the letter. It was handwritten. No fancy paper, no perfume, no decorations. Just a plain sheet, a little wrinkled from being held all day. It read, "Dear Keanu, I don't really know how to start this. I'm not good with words. But I wanted to thank you. Not for a movie. Not for the action scenes. But for something real. 3 years ago, I lost my dad. He died in a car crash coming home from work. We were supposed to have dinner together. He never made it. I didn't speak for weeks. I stopped eating much. School didn't make sense anymore. I just wanted to disappear. Then one night, I found a clip of you online. You were talking about grief. You said something like, "The people we love leave holes behind, and sometimes those holes never fill. But we learn to walk with them." I watched it over and over. I cried for the first time in weeks, because someone else understood. Someone else had walked through the same darkness and was still moving forward. That gave me hope. Real hope. Like a candle in a cave. Since then, I've watched everything you've done, not just because you're famous, but because you remind me to be kind, even when it hurts. I wrote this letter many times. Threw most of them away. I just wanted you to know. You helped a girl you never met. Thank you. Maya. Keanu read the letter once, then twice. Then a third time, slower. He leaned back, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. All the applause he had ever received couldn't match the quiet weight of those words. His thoughts drifted back to the time he had lost his own child, the heartbreak that followed, the stillness of nights when even breathing felt heavy. He remembered the funeral, the silence, the way people avoided his eyes, and how alone he had felt, despite the cameras and fans. Yet here was this young girl, who had felt the same pain, who had chosen to live, who had waited 12 hours just to say thank you. It moved something deep in him, not sadness, not pride, something else. Connection. That rare, silent bond between strangers who had been through storms. Keanu stood up, walked over to the desk, and carefully placed the letter inside his journal. Not to forget it, but to keep it safe. As if it were a sacred promise, that night, he made a decision. He called his assistant. "Hello?" The voice answered, sleepy. "Find me her number, or her mother's." "The girl's name is Maya." The assistant hesitated. "Is everything okay?" "Yes," Keanu said quietly. "But I think we have more to do." The next morning, Maya sat in the tiny hotel room, staring at the window. Her legs were still sore. Her mother was packing bags. They had to leave soon. "I don't care if he reads the letter or not," Maya said softly. "Just meeting him was enough." Her mother came over and hugged her. "I'm proud of you. You were so brave." Just then, there was a knock at the door. Maya frowned. "Did you order something?" Her mother shook her head. They opened the door. Standing there was a hotel staff member holding an envelope. "This was left for you," the staff member said. Maya took it, confused. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. It was a handwritten note. "Dear Maya, I read your letter. Every word of it, and I just want you to know, it meant more to me than I can ever say. Sometimes people think actors don't feel, that we live perfect lives behind bright lights. But we hurt too, and sometimes we need to be reminded why we keep going. You reminded me. I'd like to see you again before you leave, if that's okay. Thank you for waiting, and thank you for seeing me as more than a screen." Keanu Maya's hands went to her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. Her mother looked over her shoulder and gasped. "He wants to see you?" Maya nodded, unable to speak. 30 minutes later, a black car arrived at the front of the hotel. Keanu was inside. Maya stepped in, holding her breath. "Hi again," he said with a warm smile. "Hi," she whispered. "Back." He handed her a small notebook. Inside were pages of his own writing, quotes, thoughts, even some doodles. "I carry this with me," he said. "Sometimes it helps to put feelings down. I thought maybe you could use it now." Maya looked at the pages. One in particular stood out. It said, "The deepest connections are often built in silence." "Thank you," she said, hugging it tightly. They drove in silence for a while. It wasn't awkward. It was peaceful. Eventually, they stopped at a quiet cafe. No fans, no cameras, just two people sitting across from each other, talking about life, loss, and the strange beauty of healing. It was a moment Maya would never forget, and neither would Keanu. Because sometimes, all it takes is one letter to remind us why kindness matters. And sometimes, the people we help are the ones who end up helping us. The girl who healed the hero. The sun was high, but the cafe where they sat felt calm, almost untouched by time. The windows were open, and a breeze carried the scent of baked bread and morning dew. The table between Keanu and Maya was small, but the space between them was full, not with words, but with understanding. Maya stirred her drink slowly, her fingers still brushing the notebook he had given her. She had never imagined this moment. Never thought someone like Keanu Reeves would take the time to just sit, talk, and listen like he wasn't a star. Like he was simply human. Keanu watched her closely. Not in the way actors scan a scene, but the way a person watches someone they genuinely care about. She reminded him of something he hadn't felt in years. Raw honesty, the kind that doesn't ask for anything in return. "Do you mind if I ask?" he began carefully. "Why you held onto the letter so long before giving it to me?" Maya hesitated. Then she looked down. "Because I was afraid," she said. "I thought maybe I was just one of millions. Maybe it wouldn't matter. But I guess, deep inside, I hoped you'd see it the way I meant it. Keanu nodded slowly. You're right, he said. There are millions, but that doesn't mean each one doesn't matter. The truth is, your letter came at the right time. Maya tilted her head. Were you going through something? He paused, then nodded. A friend passed away recently, he said softly. Someone close. I didn't talk about it publicly. It just hurt more than I expected. I was starting to feel like I was drifting again, like the ground was slipping. And then, your words pulled me back. Maya blinked, tears forming again. I didn't know. You weren't supposed to, he said, but you helped anyway, and that means something. They sat in silence, each lost in thought. And then Keanu leaned back, eyes fixed on the sky. I want to show you something. Maya looked surprised. What? He smiled. Just trust me. A short drive later, they arrived at a small theater on the edge of the city, the kind with only a few rows of old velvet seats and a flickering marquee that barely worked anymore. The windows were dusty, but inside it felt like magic still lingered in the corners. I used to come here when I was younger, Keanu said, before fame, before everything. He opened the creaky door. Maya followed. The theater was empty, quiet, but warm in a strange, comforting way. Why here? She asked. Because this is where I remembered who I was, he replied. Every time the world got too loud, I came back, sat in the dark, listened to stories, and somehow, they helped me find myself again. He led her to the front row. They sat together. The projector flickered to life. An old black and white film began to play. Soft music, long pauses, and the kind of story that didn't need explosions to move you. Maya smiled. This is beautiful. So are you, he said, without meaning to sound dramatic. You're strong, Maya. Stronger than you realize. She looked at him, eyes wide. People don't say that to me much. They should, he replied. After the movie, they stood outside in the parking lot. The wind had picked up and Maya's hair danced around her face. Keanu reached into his jacket and pulled out something small, a folded piece of paper. What's that? She asked. A letter, he said. For you. I wrote it last night after reading yours. He handed it to her. Dear Maya, I've lived a long life, seen places many dream of, met thousands of faces, walked across carpets lined with lights. But moments like yesterday remind me why it all matters. I used to think the pain we carry is ours. Alone, that grief is like a shadow only we can see, but your letter, your eyes, they showed me that even strangers can carry a piece of each other's sorrow. You waited for 12 hours in the cold, not for a photo or a handshake, but to say thank you. And that kind of courage, that kind of heart, it's rare. I want you to know that you gave something back to me, not just hope, but purpose. So if you ever feel alone again, remember this. Someone out there believes in you. Someone out there is cheering for you, and always will be. Keanu Maya's lips trembled as she read. Her eyes filled once more. You wrote this for me? Yes, he said, and I meant every word. She didn't know what to say. Instead, she stepped forward and hugged him. It wasn't a fan hug. It was real, full of gratitude, full of healing, and for the first time in a long time, Keanu felt something shift inside. Not because he gave her a moment, but because she gave him something far greater, a reason to feel again. Later that night, Keanu sat back in his hotel room, the city lights glowing outside the window. He looked at the chair across from him and smiled. On the table was a small note from Maya, written in the back of the notebook he gave her. Dear Keanu, I don't feel invisible anymore. But the story didn't end there. Because the next day, the world would see a photo of Keanu and Maya sitting in the old theater, laughing like old friends, and people would begin to ask, who was the girl who made Keanu Reeves smile like that? When the photo broke the internet the next morning, the world woke up to something unusual. Not a scandal, not a new trailer, not a red carpet moment, but a simple photo of Keanu Reeves. He wasn't wearing a suit. He wasn't holding an award. He wasn't at some grand event. No. He was sitting in an old theater, leaning back in his seat, laughing, genuinely laughing, next to a teenage girl in a red sweater, who looked just as surprised as the world felt. No one knew who she was. There were no hashtags, no interviews, just one caption from a theater worker who had quietly snapped the moment without disturbing them. Kindness is real. This was yesterday. No cameras, no crowds. Just Keanu and a girl who waited. Within hours, it exploded. Millions shared it. News outlets picked it up. People across social media started asking, who is she? What's the story? Even those who weren't fans of Hollywood stopped scrolling. What they didn't know was that Maya had already left the city by then. Her train back home was early, and she and her mother had quietly disappeared from the spotlight before it even reached them. Back in her small town, Maya sat at the edge of her bed, watching the screen of her old phone light up again and again with messages she couldn't believe were real. Is that you with Keanu Reeves? OMG, you met him? Girl, you're famous. Tell me everything. Maya turned to her mom and whispered, I think people found the photo. Her mother raised an eyebrow. You think? Just then, another notification popped up. Live. On air tonight. Who is the mystery girl with Keanu Reeves? Across the city, Keanu sat in a small studio, doing an interview he hadn't planned. The host smiled, clearly excited, but trying to stay composed. Keanu, the host said. That photo, the whole internet is talking about it. It's not just a viral moment. People are calling it the most human thing they've seen in a long time. Keanu smiled gently. I didn't know it was being taken, he said. We were just sitting, talking. Can you tell us who she is? He paused. Her name is Maya, he said. And she waited 12 hours to give me a letter, not because she wanted something, but because she had something to say, something that meant the world to me. The host blinked, a little taken aback. That's powerful. Keanu nodded. I've met a lot of people, but some remind you why you started. She's one of them. Do you plan to stay in touch? Yes, he said. Definitely. Back home, Maya turned red as the interview played. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was an unknown number. She answered, her heart racing. Maya? The voice was calm, familiar. Keanu? Hey, he said softly. I saw the photo. It's everywhere. I didn't know it would go viral. Me neither, he chuckled. But maybe it's a good thing. Maybe people need to see that connection still matters. They're asking about me, she said. It's kind of scary. I know, he said. But you don't owe anyone anything. You gave me something real. That's enough. She stayed quiet for a moment. Then she asked, Do you regret meeting me? Keanu's voice became firm. No, not for 1 second. But not everyone was kind. As the internet does, some voices began to turn sour. This is just a publicity stunt. Who even is this? Girl? Probably an actress trying to get famous. Some comments hurt. They came fast and sharp like cold rain on a warm day. Maya began to doubt herself. She stopped checking her phone. She avoided social media. She didn't want to be a story anymore. She just wanted to be Maya again. Keanu saw it happening. He called her again. I know it's getting loud, he said. Too loud, she whispered. Do you want me to speak out? He asked. I can do an official statement. Tell the truth. Clear your name. No, she said. That's not why I met you. I didn't want attention. I just wanted to say thank you. And you did, he said. You did more than that. A few days later, something unexpected happened. A package arrived at Maya's doorstep. No return address. Inside was a single item. A worn leather journal the first page was a note. I wanted you to have this. It's my old one. The one I carried for years before the movies, before the fame. It helped me survive the quiet battles. Maybe now, it will help you too. Maya held it close, tears slipping down her cheeks. This wasn't for the cameras. It wasn't a post. It wasn't a tweet. This was real. Then came the moment that turned the story forever. Maya's school held a small assembly. The principal asked her to speak, to inspire others. She was nervous. She had never stood on a stage before, but something inside her said it was time. She walked up, her red sweater now iconic. The students stared, whispering. Maya took a deep breath and said, "Some of you know me because of a photo, but that's not where my story began. I was someone who didn't believe her voice mattered, who thought pain made you invisible. But one man, someone most people never meet, looked me in the eye and showed me I was seen. Not because of who I am, but because I waited and I didn't give up." She paused. "You don't have to be famous to change someone's life. You just have to show up." The crowd was silent. Then, a standing ovation. Across the country, Keanu watched the video of her speech. He smiled. His phone buzzed. A message from her. "I finally believe I matter." "Thank you," he replied. "You always did. The world's just catching up." The moment the world listened, days passed, then weeks. The storm of attention began to calm, but something had changed, not just in Maya's life, but in the hearts of millions who had followed her story. Strangers from around the world wrote to her school, sent letters to her home, and filled her inbox with messages that started the same way. "I thought I was alone until I saw you." Her story had become a mirror for people silently carrying grief, anxiety, heartbreak, people who had never been noticed. Maya's courage reminded them that even the quietest voice matters when it comes from truth. But while others saw a rising star, Maya still felt like a small-town girl who once waited 12 hours just to say thank you. She didn't care about attention. She cared about the connection she had made with someone she respected, someone who had reminded her she was worth something. Still, as kind as the world could be, fame came with pressure. One morning, her mother walked in holding a stack of letters. "These came today," she said gently. Maya opened one. It was from a young boy in Germany. "I lost my brother last year. I didn't want to wake up anymore. But after I saw your story, I told my mom I want to try again. You made me believe it's okay to feel broken." She folded the letter slowly and pressed it to her heart. She had wanted to thank someone. Now, people were thanking her. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Keanu sat in his quiet home, flipping through a folder his assistant had handed him. Inside were printouts, dozens of news articles, social media posts, and handwritten letters all about Maya. He read each one slowly. His fingers paused on one picture. Maya giving a speech at her school. She looked nervous, but proud. Behind her was a quote written on the wall. "You don't have to be famous to change someone's life, you just have to show up." Keanu closed his eyes and exhaled deeply. It hit him all over again, how one small act, one simple moment, could ripple across lives he'd never even meet. He picked up his phone and made a call. "Can we arrange something for Maya?" His assistant's voice came through. "What kind of something?" Keanu leaned forward. "I want to bring her to the set." Maya didn't believe it at first. "He wants me to what?" she asked. Her mother laughed softly. "He wants you to visit the movie set. Spend a day there. He says you deserve to see what your kindness helped inspire." Maya's heart raced. She had never been on a plane before, never left her state. And now, someone like Keanu Reeves was flying her out. Not to meet her, but to honor her. When she arrived on set, Everything felt unreal. Bright lights, camera rigs, people with headsets walking fast and focused. But even in all the noise, Keanu found her in the crowd instantly. "There she is," he said with a smile. He greeted her with a warm hug. No cameras, no posing. Just the same man she met outside the hotel weeks ago. He introduced her to the crew, the director, even some of the actors. "This is Maya," he said proudly. "The girl who reminded me why stories matter." She blushed, overwhelmed but grateful. Then something happened she never expected. Keanu turned to the director. "Can she be in the film?" The director raised an eyebrow. "You serious?" "Just a moment," Keanu said. "She doesn't have to speak. Just be there." Maya's jaw dropped. I don't know how to act," she said. Keanu smiled. "You've already done more than most actors ever will. You've told the truth." That day, she stood in a quiet scene. No lines, no close-up. Just her, walking past Keanu's character in a park as he sat on a bench. But the moment was real, because the story they were filming wasn't just fiction anymore. It was infused with something more powerful, honesty. After the take, the crew clapped. Not because the scene was big, but because they felt something they hadn't in a long time. A reminder. A pause. Keanu walked over and handed Maya a small wrapped gift. "What's this?" she asked. "Open it." Inside was a golden pendant shaped like a candle, to remind you of what you are, he said. She tilted her head. "What am I?" He looked into her eyes and said quietly, "Light." Later that night, they sat on the rooftop of the studio, watching the city lights shimmer below. "Do you miss the quiet?" she asked him. "Every day," he said. Then, "Why do you keep doing this?" He paused, then smiled. "Because people like you keep reminding me it matters." Before she flew home, Keanu pulled her aside and handed her a notebook. "This one's empty," he said. "I think it's time you write your own story now." Maya hugged him tight. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me." "Thank you," he replied, "for reminding me how to feel." They didn't say goodbye, just smiled, because some people don't exit your life. They walk beside it forever. That night, as Maya looked out her airplane window, clouds drifting beneath her, she opened the first page of the new notebook. She wrote one line. "I waited 12 hours for him, but he gave me a reason to believe for the rest of my life." And in another part of the world, Keanu Reeves smiled, knowing the light she carried would continue long after the cameras stopped rolling. The legacy of a moment. The seasons changed. The photo faded from headlines. But the story didn't end. Maya returned to her quiet town, back to school, back to old routines. But everything felt different now. Not because of fame, not because she'd met someone the world admired, but because for the first time in her life, she felt seen. People treated her differently too. Not in a fake way, but with respect. Teachers listened more carefully. Classmates stopped walking past her like she was invisible. Even strangers at the grocery store smiled at her like they somehow understood she had been through something powerful. But despite it all, Maya stayed the same. Humble, quiet, always kind. She started writing in the notebook Keanu gave her. Every day. Not about fame or cameras, but about feelings. Little thoughts. Pieces of herself she was still discovering. "Some days, I still feel sad for no reason. But now I know that's okay. I met someone who showed me it's okay to carry pain, as long as you keep walking." Those words became the start of something bigger. One morning, her school counselor pulled her aside. "Maya, a local nonprofit is hosting a storytelling contest. Young writers. Your teacher submitted a few pages from your notebook." Maya blinked. I didn't know." "You've been selected," the counselor said with a smile. They want to publish your writing. Maya's hands trembled. Really? Really? And there's more. They're inviting you to speak, not as a celebrity, but as a writer. Weeks later, Maya stood on stage at a small event hall, holding that same notebook in her hand. Her red sweater now fit a little differently. She'd grown, not just taller, but stronger inside. The crowd was silent as she read. When I was 13, I thought grief made me invisible. I thought kindness didn't matter. Then I met someone who proved both wrong. He didn't save me. I saved myself. But he reminded me that someone, even one person, caring enough to listen, can change everything. The crowd stood up before she finished the last page, and in the back row, sitting quietly in a black hoodie and cap, was Keanu Reeves. No cameras, no spotlight. Just him, watching proudly. After her talk, he approached her backstage. "That was beautiful," he said. "You came," she whispered, smiling. "Of course," he replied. "I wouldn't miss it." Maya's story was published in a small collection called 12 Hours. It was sold not in bookstores, but handed out in grief support groups, therapy centers, and youth shelters, because it wasn't written for fame. It was written for those who needed to believe again. Years passed. Maya went on to study psychology, not because she wanted a fancy job, but because she wanted to help others the way someone once helped her. She started a program for kids who had lost parents. She called it Letters of Light, inspired by the ones she wrote and the ones she received. And one special evening, as she walked through a small campus library, she saw a boy sitting alone, crying over a folded piece of paper. She sat next to him. "What's wrong?" "I miss my dad," he whispered. "I feel like no one understands." Maya pulled out her notebook. Not the new one, but the old one. The one Keanu gave her that day on the rooftop. She opened it to the first page and handed it to him. "Read this." His hands shook as he held it. The deepest connections are often built in silence. He looked at her. "Who wrote this?" She smiled softly. "A friend." Somewhere in the hills of Los Angeles, Keanu Reeves sat beneath a tree with his own notebook in hand. He flipped to a page tucked with a photo. The theater photo. Next to it was Maya's letter, folded neatly. A small smile formed on his lips, because he knew. That girl who waited 12 hours changed more lives than she'd ever know, not because she was loud, not because she was famous, but because she chose kindness when no one was watching. Epilogue. Maya never chased fame. Keanu never spoke about her in another interview, because some stories are too real for headlines. Some stories belong to the quiet, to the people who wait, to the people who show up, and to the moments that don't go viral, but live forever in someone's heart.